trying to speed up in the car. Roll! Oh, Jesus!
WBRC 6 News at 10 starts right now.
We have an update tonight on a story that horrified the community this week. Birmingham police have arrested 3 people as they investigate the shooting that killed a 21-year-old mother.
Your reporter James Giles covered the press conference about that shooting at the Monarch Ridge Apartments. He's live and on your side with the latest tonight. James.
Yeah, Steve, Brittany, I asked police what started the fight and shooting that killed Asia Poole, and they did not answer. But they did make it clear that these arrests may not be the last.
We're traveling to Birmingham, Alabama, where a conflict that started online exploded into one of the most documented mass shootings in recent memory, all because 2 young women couldn't walk away from a fight over a man. On a warm evening at the Monarch Ridge Apartments, over 160 rounds of ammunition tore through the air in just a few minutes. Multiple Facebook live streams captured every terrifying second as residents dove for cover. This massacre started with a heartbroken 21-year-old mother named Asia Poole, who had buried the father of her child just 7 days earlier. Asia should have been home, mourning with her 4-year-old daughter. Instead, she was lying dead in a parking lot, shot in the back while fleeing the very confrontation she had sought out. Her opponent, 19-year-old Jania Hendricks, would soon be facing murder charges alongside multiple family members. All of this carnage over a man whose name we still don't even know. Multiple people live-streamed the violence as it happened, creating a real-time record tragedy that investigators would later use to piece together exactly what went wrong. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know what state you're watching from. Have you seen how social media conflicts can escalate in your own community? Your engagement helps us reach more people with these important stories. Welcome back to True Crime Station, where we examine the darkest corners of human nature and the tragic consequences that follow. Thank you for joining our community of truth seekers. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Asia was still reeling from devastating loss. Just 1 week before the shooting, her boyfriend, the father of her 4-year-old child, had died. Asia was drowning in fresh grief, dealing with impossible tasks explaining to a toddler why daddy wasn't coming home anymore. Grief doesn't follow rules. It can make you angry, desperate, and willing to fight battles you would normally walk away from. For Asia Poole, that grief was about to collide with a conflict that should have been beneath her notice. On the other side was Jania Hendricks, just 19 years old, and apparently involved with a man who had also caught Asia's attention. The identity of this man has largely been kept out of public records, but his mere existence was enough to ignite a feud between 2 young women. The Monarch Ridge Apartment sits in Birmingham, Alabama, a city with a crime rate significantly higher than the national average. The apartment complex itself had a history of violent incidents. Despite having surveillance cameras installed throughout the property, these cameras weren't connected to Birmingham's real-time crime center. When violence erupted, law enforcement couldn't monitor the situation as it developed.
The cameras do work and their footage is available, so we were able to access that to help further our investigation, but there again, they were supposed to be feeding into our real-time crime center.
And again, Chief Thurman says they're still investigating and could arrest additional people. Now, if you do have information, come forward. You can even do it anonymously if you call Crime Stoppers.
In the days leading up to the shooting, tensions were building online. Social media had become a battlefield where Asia and Jania traded insults and threats over their shared connection to this unnamed man. What started as private messages escalated to public posts, drawing friends and family members into the conflict. Social media transforms personal disputes into public spectacles. Every insult was public, every threat was documented, and every escalation was witnessed by dozens of people who could comment, share, or encourage more drama. Asia Poole was dealing with the death of her child's father while simultaneously engaging in an online war over another man. The emotional chaos she must have been experiencing, grief, anger, jealousy, and the pressure performing for social media audiences, was building toward explosion. Jania Hendricks was caught up in adult drama, with family members who would soon be drawn into the violence, including her brother Justin. Taylor McLeod, another key player, was also in Jania's orbit and would soon be implicated in the shooting. The stage was set for disaster. Two young women, both connected to the same man, both using social media to escalate their conflict, both surrounded by people more interested in winning than walking away. After days of social media warfare, Asia Poole made a decision that would cost her everything. She decided to confront Jania Hendricks face-to-face. On the evening of the shooting, Asia arrived at the Monarch Ridge apartments with backup. She brought friends and supporters who'd been following the online drama. This wasn't going to be a private conversation. This was going to be a public showdown. Jania Hendricks was ready for her, having gathered her own support system, including family members who would soon be facing criminal charges. The apartment complex parking lot became an arena, with residents gathering to watch what many expected to be a typical fight. The physical altercation began predictably. Asia and Jania squared off, trading insults that had been brewing online for days. Cell phones came out immediately. Multiple people began live streaming on Facebook, turning the dispute into a public broadcast. Viewers watching from home could see the tension building in real time. The physical fight between Asia and Jania was brief but intense. These were angry young women throwing wild punches while their friends shouted encouragement or tried to separate them. Under normal circumstances, this would have ended with bruises and a viral video. But nothing about this situation was normal. As the fight progressed, more people got involved. Friends jumped in to help their favorites. What started as one-on-one combat became a group brawl. The Facebook live streams captured every moment, creating a permanent record of how quickly peaceful disagreement becomes violent chaos. Then came the moment that changed everything. Someone decided that fists weren't enough. In a community where guns are unfortunately common, someone made the decision to get a weapon. The live streamers kept broadcasting. Viewers watching from home could see people running to cars, could hear shouting about getting guns, could watch as a simple fight transformed into something much more dangerous. Have you ever witnessed something like this in your community? Share your thoughts below about how social media has changed the way conflicts play out in your neighborhood. Within minutes, what had started as two women fighting over a man had become multiple vehicles, multiple weapons, and multiple people about to make decisions that would destroy lives forever. The Facebook live streams continued rolling, creating a real-time documentary of American gun violence. Asia Poole was still at the scene. She could have left after the initial fight. She could have gone home to her 4-year-old daughter, who had already lost her father. Instead, she stayed, caught up in the momentum of conflict and social media documentation. Multiple Facebook live streams captured every terrifying second as a simple fight transformed into a war zone. The shooting began suddenly but lasted for several minutes. Over 160 rounds of ammunition were fired, nearly 3 shots every second. The sound was deafening, echoing off apartment buildings and sending families diving for cover. Multiple shooters opened fire from multiple vehicles. This wasn't a single gunman losing control. This was coordinated violence involving numerous people. The Facebook live streams captured muzzle flashes, gunfire, and the panic of people caught in the middle. Asia Poole was still in the parking lot when the shooting started. According to witness accounts and video evidence, she was trying to get to safety when she was struck. The bullet hit her in the back as she was running away from the confrontation she had come to start. In her final moments, Asia wasn't fighting for a man. She was running for her life, probably thinking about the 4-year-old daughter who was about to lose her only remaining parent. The devastating irony, Asia Poole, who had lost her boyfriend just 1 week earlier, died running away from a fight over another man. The child who had just lost her father was now orphaned completely. While Asia lay dying, the gunfire continued. Another person was seriously injured and rushed to the hospital. Bullets tore through car doors, shattered apartment windows, and sent residents scrambling for safety. Children were crying. Parents were calling 911, and the Facebook live streams kept rolling. Residents described the sound as like being in a war zone. The sustained nature of the shooting, multiple minutes of nearly continuous gunfire, created terror that many had never experienced.
This hoe trying to speed off in the car. Roll! Oh, Jesus!
Cars were riddled with bullets. Apartment walls were punctured. Windows exploded as residents dug for cover. Through it all, the Facebook live stream continued. Viewers watching from home could see the aftermath in real time. Police sirens approaching, people crying, someone checking on Asia Poole's motionless body. Emergency responders arrived to find complete chaos. Asia Poole was pronounced dead at the scene. The other shooting victim was rushed to the hospital. The apartment complex looked like a war zone, with bullet holes everywhere and residents too traumatized to come out. The shooters had fled, leaving behind a community in trauma and investigators with a massive task of sorting through video evidence to determine who was responsible for turning a fistfight into a massacre. Birmingham police faced the challenging task of investigating a mass shooting that had been broadcast live to thousands of viewers. While the extensive video documentation would prove invaluable, the immediate response was complicated by infrastructure gaps. The apartment complex's surveillance cameras had recorded the entire incident, but they weren't connected to Birmingham's real-time crime center. Dispatchers received 911 calls about shots fired but couldn't monitor the situation as it developed. However, investigators had something unprecedented: multiple Facebook live streams that had captured the shooting from different angles. These weren't security recordings discovered after the fact. These were live broadcasts viewed by hundreds of people in real time. The investigation revealed this wasn't spontaneous violence. The online conflict between Asia Poole and Jania Hendricks had been building for days, with friends and family increasingly involved. Social media had transformed what should have been a private disagreement into a public performance requiring dramatic conclusion. Identifying the shooters required painstaking analysis. Investigators matched faces and names, tracked vehicles leaving the scene, and determined which individuals had fired weapons. The Facebook live streams provided multiple angles of the same events. Within days, arrest began. Jania Hendricks was charged in connection with a murder. Her brother, Justin Hendricks, was also arrested. Taylor McLeod faced charges as well. Even a 17-year-old was arrested, highlighting how the violence had drawn in people across multiple age groups. The charges were serious: murder, attempted murder, and weapons charges that could result in decades in prison. The Facebook Live evidence was so clear that defense attorneys would have little room to argue about what happened or who was involved. The investigation also revealed broader systemic issues. The apartment complex's surveillance system was designed to help prevent crimes, but it wasn't properly integrated with law enforcement's real-time monitoring capabilities. Social media platforms had provided infrastructure for escalating the conflict, but they had no mechanisms for detecting disputes heading toward violence. What emerged was a picture of how modern conflict developed and escalate. Social media provided the platform for initial dispute. Live streaming documented the escalation, and easy access to firearms transformed a minor disagreement into a massacre that left one young mother dead and multiple others facing life in prison. The shooting at Monarch Ridge Apartments wasn't isolated. It was part of a broader pattern that has made Birmingham one of America's most dangerous cities. The city's violent crime rate runs significantly higher than the national average, with gun violence being a particular problem. Law enforcement faces challenges becoming increasingly common in American cities. Officers deal with easy access to firearms, social media platforms that escalate conflicts rapidly, and communities where traditional dispute resolution has been replaced by public confrontations designed for online audiences. What makes this case particularly significant is how thoroughly it was documented. The Facebook live streams provide an unprecedented window into how social media conflicts escalate into real-world violence. Social media has fundamentally changed how disputes develop and escalate. What used to be private disagreements are now public performances, requiring audiences and dramatic conclusions. The pressure to maintain online reputation can push people into confrontations they would otherwise avoid. In Asia Poole's case, the timing was particularly tragic. She was dealing with fresh grief from losing her boyfriend just 1 week earlier, which likely impaired her judgment. Grief doesn't excuse violence, but it helps explain how someone who should have been home with her 4-year-old daughter ended up fighting over a man whose name we still don't know. The live streaming element added another layer of complexity. People who might have walked away from private disputes felt pressure to perform for online audiences. The Facebook live streams created permanent documentation, but also provided incentives for escalation. The ease of access to firearms meant that when the dispute escalated beyond fists, it escalated to lethal force almost immediately. Over 160 rounds fired in minutes suggests multiple people had access to high-capacity weapons in a residential area where families were trying to live peacefully. The impact on the broader community extends far beyond immediate victims. Residents now live with trauma from witnessing mass shooting in their parking lot. Children who heard the gunfire will associate the sound with terror for years to come. This tragedy was preventable at multiple levels. If surveillance cameras had been properly connected to real-time monitoring, law enforcement might have intervened before the shooting. The infrastructure for preventing tragedies like this one exists, but isn't properly coordinated. Surveillance cameras are installed, but not monitored in real time. Social media companies have policies against threats and harassment, but lack effective systems for detecting disputes that are heading toward violence. Community leaders want to address gun violence, but struggle with residents who are reluctant to cooperate with law enforcement. What makes this case particularly significant is how thoroughly it was documented. Most gun violence happens quickly and with limited witnesses, making it difficult for investigators to piece together exactly what happened. The Facebook live streams from the Monarch Ridge shooting provide an unprecedented window into how social media conflicts can escalate into real-world violence. The role of social media in modern conflicts can't be overstated. Platforms like Facebook have fundamentally changed how disputes develop and escalate. What used to be private disagreements between individuals are now public performances that require audiences and dramatic conclusions. The pressure to maintain online reputation can push people into confrontations they would otherwise avoid. In Asia Poole's case, the timing was particularly tragic. She was dealing with fresh grief from losing her boyfriend just 1 week earlier, which likely impaired her judgment and made her more willing to engage in conflicts she would normally ignore. Over 160 rounds fired in a few minutes suggests that multiple people had access to high-capacity weapons and were willing to use them in a residential area where families were trying to live their lives in peace. The impact on the broader community extends far beyond the immediate victims. Residents of Monarch Ridge Apartments now live with the trauma of having witnessed a mass shooting in their own parking lot. Children who heard the gunfire will associate the sound with terror for years to come. Families who once felt safe in their homes now understand how quickly their neighborhood can become a war zone.
They are also facing attempted murder charges for shooting this man, Demarion Rankins, in the leg during the incident where police say 168 shots were fired. I talked with Rankins Thursday, who told me the whole thing started from social media beef about a shared love interest.
The zone is very small. It's literally so little. Somebody mad about somebody. This ain't theirs. Can't get mad at somebody this ain't choice.
But police would not confirm Rankin's account. Authorities charged 19-year-old Janiyah Hendricks with theft of property, saying she stole Poole's car after fighting the woman just before the shooting.
When she was like, her car getting took, I'm running out after her car to get her car. After they don't run into the car, they was shooting, so I really can't tell who was shooting back.
Police say they pieced together who did what thanks to cameras at the apartment complex and a Facebook live stream of the entire thing.
We'll continue to investigate until we can find everyone involved.
The investigation revealed that this tragedy was preventable at multiple levels. If the surveillance cameras had been properly connected to real-time monitoring, law enforcement might have been able to intervene before the shooting started. If social media platforms had better systems for detecting escalating conflicts, the online dispute might have been flagged before it moved to physical confrontation. If firearms weren't so easily accessible, the fight might have ended with bruises instead of bodies. But prevention requires coordination between multiple systems: law enforcement, social media companies, community leaders, and residents themselves. It requires people to value life over pride, to choose walking away over winning arguments, and understand that online conflicts can have deadly real-world consequences. The case also highlights the generational divide in how conflicts are handled. Older residents might remember when disputes were settled privately or with the help of community leaders. Younger people have grown up in an era where everything is public, everything is documented, and everything requires an audience. As we reach the end of this tragic story, we're left with questions that extend far beyond the specific details of what happened at Monarch Ridge Apartments. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about how we handle conflict, how we process grief, and how social media has fundamentally changed the stakes of human disagreement. Asia Poole made a series of decisions that cost her everything. She chose to engage in an online conflict when she should have been focused on healing from her boyfriend's death. She chose to meet that conflict in person when she could have blocked, ignored, or walked away. She chose to stay at the scene when guns were drawn instead of running home to her 4-year-old daughter who had already lost one parent. But before we judge Asia too harshly, we need to acknowledge the impossible emotional storm she was navigating. Losing a partner is devastating under any circumstances. Losing the father of your young child creates a special kind of pain that affects every aspect of your thinking. Add the pressure of social media performance, the influence of friends encouraging confrontation, and the toxic combination of grief and anger, and you have a recipe for decisions that no rational person would make under normal circumstances. The real tragedy isn't just that Asia Poole died. It's that her death was completely preventable. At multiple points in this story, different choices could have changed everything. If she had stayed home to grieve with her daughter, if friends had encouraged her to ignore the online drama instead of supporting her desire for confrontation, if the dispute had been handled privately instead of being broadcast for entertainment, if weapons hadn't been introduced to what should have been a minor disagreement. Jania Hendricks, at just 19 years old, is now facing murder charges that could result in decades in prison. Her brother Justin and friend Taylor McLeod are also facing serious charges. A 17-year-old's future has been destroyed by involvement in this violence. Multiple families have been shattered by decisions made in a few minutes of anger. The unnamed man at the center of this conflict probably had no idea that his existence was causing such drama. He was likely go about his life, unaware that 2 women were preparing to fight over him, and that fight would end in death. His mere presence in both women's lives was enough to ignite a conflict that destroyed multiple families. But the lessons from this case extend beyond the individual decisions made by the people involved. This tragedy exposes systemic problems that require systemic solutions. We need better integration between surveillance systems and law enforcement. We need social media platforms to develop better methods for detecting and preventing conflicts that are escalating toward violence. The Facebook live streams that documented this tragedy serve as a permanent reminder of how quickly situations can spiral out of control. They also demonstrate how technology that was designed to connect people and share experiences can be weaponized to escalate conflicts and document violence. For those of us watching the story from a distance, it's easy to say that we would make different choices. But the truth is that we all live in the same social media environment that contributed to this tragedy. We all face the pressure to perform our emotions online, to respond to slights and disagreements publicly, and to maintain our reputation in digital spaces. The challenge is learning to recognize when online conflicts are heading toward real-world consequences and having the wisdom to walk away before irreversible damage is done. It's about choosing our children's future over our pride, choosing peace over winning arguments, and understanding that no social media dispute is worth dying over. Asia Poole's 4-year-old daughter is now growing up without either parent. She lost her father 1 week and her mother the next, all because adults couldn't find a way to resolve their differences without violence. That little girl is the real victim in this story, and her future will be shaped by decisions that were made before she was old enough to understand what was happening. As we conclude today's episode, I want to hear from you. What do you think could have prevented this tragedy? Have you seen similar conflicts escalating in your own community? How do we balance the benefits of social media connection with the risks of online conflict escalation? Let me know in the comments below. If this story has affected you, please take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Station and ring the notification bell. Your support helps us continue bringing you these important stories that examine not just what happened, but why it happened and what we can learn from it. Remember that behind every true crime story are real people who made real choices with real consequences. Asia Poole wasn't just a victim in a case study. She was a young mother who made fatal mistakes while dealing with grief and anger. Jania Hendricks isn't just a defendant. She's a teenager whose life has been permanently altered by a few minutes of violence. Thank you for joining us today for this difficult but important story. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember that walking away from conflict isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest thing you can do. Until next time, this is True Crime Station, where we seek truth in the darkness and hope that understanding can prevent future tragedies.